accepted as statement of fact. Independent fact-checking and corrections are encouraged. This episode is brought to you by FundWise Capital. FundWise Capital is a business lender matching platform. Avoid the mystery of one-sided deals and connect with FundWise to get the very best funding you can qualify for fast. You can apply online in 60 seconds or less, and there's no effect to your credit to see how much you can get. It's easy. Use the funding for anything you need to start or grow your business. You did hear me correctly. I did say start or grow your business. If you don't have a business yet, but you got a solid business plan, they can help you get funding. Get the best funding you can qualify for. Their strategic lender matching platform searches through hundreds of lenders to find the very best possible option for your unique situation. They have hundreds of 5-star reviews on Google, Trustpilot, and Facebook, and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. They provide unsecured lines of credit at 0% interest for 9 to 15 months. Unsecured term loans, loans based on income, short-term gap funding, and bridge loans. They work with real estate, startups like I already mentioned, franchises, restaurants, any kind of business, any kind of project. To get started, it's really easy. Just go to apply.fundwise.com/minddog. That's apply.fundwise.com/minddog. Get money for your business now. Apply.fundwise.com/minddog.
Is everybody ready for the Mind Dog, the Magnificent Show?
Ready or not, here we come.
Start the clock!
Oh, and welcome, my friends, to yet another episode of the Mind Dog TV podcast. I'm Matt Napo. Thanks for coming. It's great to have you here, as always. Tonight, we're going to talk about self-sabotage. What exactly is it? What do we mean by it? How do you deal with it? How do you get past it? And all that kind of stuff. I think, I encourage people to keep an open mind about every kind of avenue that is open to us for dealing with stuff that might cause problems with our lives. And I know I've heard a lot of backlash from people who have been critics of some of the guests that I've had on about self-help stuff, and part of the um, part of the perception is that you need to be perfect in order to help other people improve their lives, and I think that's unfair, and I don't think it's necessarily going to be helpful in people moving past whatever it is that is blocking them from dealing with the issues that they feel they need to deal with. So keep that in mind for this, and not only this program, but anytime we have somebody who is a guest who is offering people maybe a different way of finding help for themselves. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Self-sabotage. What is it? How do you get past it? How do you deal with it? Bo Bissett helps others to find some subconscious self-sabotaging behaviors they are repeating that are keeping them from living their potential. I wonder if he can help me learn to read. He helps them deal with addiction, healing relationships, learning self-love, building confidence, and finding their true purpose. He created a system called Amoni, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, to find the emotional blocks, move them, and build a foundation of positivity to affect lasting change. Ladies and gentlemen, please open your ears, open your minds, and help me welcome in Bo Bissett to the Mind Dog TV podcast. Bo, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Matt. How are you today?
I'm doing well. You're American, yes?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I should have looked in your bio, and I'm not even sure that would have been there. But I talk to people all over the world, so I just want to make sure of those
No,
things.
I am American, but I live in Taiwan.
Where?
Taiwan.
Wow. So we got a pretty good connection for all the way around the world. That's very cool.
Yeah.
How long you been over there?
5. I've been in the city that I'm in now. I'm in the south of Taiwan, called a city called Kaohsiung. It's the second largest city in the country. I've been here for about 5 years. Actually, I forgot. I was 5 years. I got here 5 years ago on July 4th. So I've been here 5 years and a day.
Wow, very cool. Yeah, man, that I'm almost interested in making the entire program about what it's like to live in Taiwan. But the people here want to hear about self sabotage, so
I hear you.
we'll go to that. But I am interested in that. That's a very how an American ends up living there and why and all that stuff. But we don't have time for that,
Well,
unfortunately.
actually, I'll get into that when we talk about self sabotage. But yeah, this short, short and skinny on Taiwan is a beautiful little island right off the coast of China, and yeah, man, it's really it's a beautiful little place. The western side of the country is mostly developed because there's a central mountain range that blocks the west coast from the typhoons that come in here during basically it's the same hurricane season that we have back in the states, right? So there's very little development on the east coast, and yeah, from the central mountain range east, it's unbelievable. It's like some unspoiled beauty. It's almost like you end up some places that looks like from Jurassic Park or whatever. It's really
Right.
nice.
And there's no I should know this as well, but there's no difficulty in you being able to freely communicate with somebody outside the country or back in the USA.
No,
Government
no,
isn't monitoring you at all
no,
anyway.
no. Taiwan's a democratic country, and but the UN does not recognize Taiwan as their own country, and China, in fact, is knocking on the door right now to reclaim Taiwan, kind of like they did with Hong Kong. So
I know that, and that was would be my concern about that. Now, if we can, um, yeah, I would love to learn more about this.
no worries,
I
no
really
worries.
would. But time is short, and people want to know about the subject that we're here to talk about tonight. So, self sabotage. How would you define that before we start talking about it? How do you define what self sabotage is?
Self sabotage is the thoughts, words, deeds, emotions, the energy that we give off that are keeping us repeating the same behaviors. See that are running our lives. And most of us are controlled by a child, by our own inner child, by the emotions that we programmed in our childhood years, and those emotions are now or later, decades later, running the way that we perceive ourselves and the way that we act around money and family and food and health and exercise and basically everything that we have come in contact with. So yeah, self sabotage is the things that we think, say, do, and feel that are keeping us from realizing our potential.
Okay, so now how did you come across with the method that you are using to, I
Hmm.
guess, discover
Hmm.
what your own self sabotaging behaviors were?
Yeah, that's a perfect way to describe what I do. This discovery. Um, the system that I use is called amo ni. Amo in Spanish means I love, ni in Chinese means you. So together blended, it means I love you. And so we use muscle testing, self muscle testing, to go in and establish a direct line of communication with the subconscious. With the muscle testing, we ask questions, yes or no questions, and with the way that I use it, I use my left hand as my control hand and my right hand as my testing hand. So I make a loop with my left hand with my index finger and thumb, and then with my right hand, pinky and thumb. And this is yes is strong. The muscles, the links stay together, and no, and the links break. Um, I first learned about muscle testing maybe 20 years ago, and like the first way I learned was you have one individual that stands with their arm out, and the testing as the subject, and then the other individual asks questions, and the theory behind muscle testing and kinesiology is that the muscle and the mind cannot hold a false thought and the muscle tension at the same time. So if you ask a false question, then the arm will drop when the tester pushes down on the arm. So the same thing works with self muscle testing. So
Very interesting stuff. Now, did you come up with this method, or did somebody teach you?
No, I went through a system called the Spiral. It was developed by an Australian guy, and I had been through dozens and dozens of stuff trying to get better, trying to heal my addictions, trying to heal my own self sabotage with finance, with relationships. I mean, basically, we have a relationship with every single thing in our environment. You know, with the people that we are friends with, and our family, our spouses, our partners. We have a relationship with food, with the computer that we're using, like every single thing, and the basis of each of those relationships is an emotion. And so, for me, I was self-sabotaging on so many levels. It was just everything, like physically. I'd gotten myself in so many different accidents and wrecks, two wrecks where I almost killed myself in my late teens and early 20s. And then financially, like one of my big programs is running. Like, as soon as I felt threatened or anxious or just upset or something, I would just run. And most people like quit a job or like, or move to a different city. I moved to different countries.
Yeah, I get it.
You asked how I got in Taiwan, so that's how I got to Taiwan. So I initially left America and I ended up in Europe, and then I bounced around Europe, and then ended up in Asia, and then I bounced around Asia. And I've been all over, man, just running and running and running
What were you running from?
myself. I was
Mm.
running from for no, that was my initial program. See, when I was 12 years old, my parents sat me and my brother down and they told us, like, we're getting a divorce. And I grew up in a small town in North Carolina, and I know what a divorce was, but like none of my friends or their parents had been through a divorce, right? So I freaked out. And the first thing I did, I jumped off. They set us down in their bedroom. I jumped off the bed, ran through the bedroom, out the house, and just like, woof, I was gone. I came back later that night because I was 12 years old and I didn't know where else to go and I was hungry, right? So
Yeah.
I went home, but that was my program. Like that had established that traumatic event. And see, that's what establishes these emotions and these programs that we install. The traumatic events that we embody the emotional reaction to that event. And it doesn't have to be like a big event like a divorce or like a car wreck or anything like that. I mean, trauma, the definition of trauma is an emotional response. So we have emotional responses, especially as children. As children, that's how we make sense of the world. We're constantly grabbing onto uh, what we see and what we experience, what we feel, what we think, and what other people say. Their energy. Your dad might come home from work when you were 8 years old, and you run to go hug him, and he's had a bad day, and he's just like he blows you off, right? He doesn't have to say anything. He hadn't have to like touch you. He could just like turn the other way and like go into his office or whatever. And as an 8-year-old kid, boom, that's in there. It's
Hmm.
stuck, right? So we've got thousands and thousands of those different programs running the way that we live our lives. And so the self sabotage happens when a similar instance occurs, and that program cues, and we don't even know it. Like we don't even know that that program is being played. I was, of course, I was aware that I was, moving countries. Every time I, broke up with a girlfriend or didn't like a job or something like that. But like, it doesn't really register. Like, dude, you were actually running away from these instances. And
Interesting way you characterize that, because
mhm,
I can relate to it because, first of all, I did run away from home at 14 years old, and I didn't come back that night.
mhm,
So I established that, and basically, it was a traumatic, a series of traumatic events that led to that. Um, But I went to I lived in New York, and I instead of getting on the school bus in the morning, I had a friend drive me to Eastern Airlines in LaGuardia Airport, and took a one-way flight to Orlando, Florida, and went there to live. Uh,
At
so
14 years old.
at 14 years old, yeah.
Wow.
And so, but I can, when you said about it, quitting jobs and things like that, that was definitely, I talked about this morning on my morning program in preparation for night, trying to explain to people what I think of self sabotagers, because I know several times I had reached a pinnacle point or a turning point in my career where I was at a very high level and not wanting that and quit just and many times I've had many careers, and I get to a certain point where I push the envelope wanting to be in a position of authority and more responsibility, and when I get enough responsibility that it scares me,
Hmm.
I just quit, flat
Yeah.
out quit. Like, I need a change, and walk away from it. So a lot of what you're saying resonates with me in a lot of ways, but curious, I'm not that anymore, and there's nothing that I did to change that except get older.
Right.
Now I think I'm probably too old to run, and maybe that's the answer for me, but I don't know. So I'm thinking about what it was that changed that for me. So I'm just curious. You got me interested now.
Well, I'll tell you what changed you was awareness, right? And that's what
I think I
the,
just became aware this morning, though, Bo. I mean, I think seriously, I was thinking about it in those terms, and now when you just said this, that is, resonates even more with me. Is that this
Mhm.
idea that that was my pattern? Flight was definitely my pattern for
Right,
most of my life. It's not anymore, and I'm just
right.
thinking about it now. But I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, it's just I just think that awareness is what is what offers us that change. It's like it finally it finally sinks in.
Okay.
Uh, Now, the awareness can come through. It can come through meditation. It can come through like basket weaving. It can come through harmony. But yeah, I mean, being aware of our conscious or unconscious behaviors, and sometimes it comes in the form of another traumatic incident, right? That'll rock the boat and like, dude, whoa, you know.
Yeah, I
So
don't want to make this all about me, but you're talking, and what you're saying is resonating with me, and I'm thinking that I made a conscious decision that I wasn't going to do that to myself anymore. Put myself in a position where I just got into something about taking on responsibility I didn't really want, and
mhm,
to and I'll tell you, if I think about it now more clearly, um, there was a moment where I decided life is too short. I'm going to live the life that I was meant to live, and
mm,
live with the purpose that I want to live with, rather than what other people want me to do with my life.
mhm.
And that's a moment of self-awareness.
Exactly, exactly is
Yeah. I can tell you where that came from. I was having a conversation with a guy I was buying an amplifier from, and he was asking me. I met him in a parking lot, and I could tell the guy was pretty wealthy, but he was older than me, and he said to he asked what I did, and I told him I play in a band, and he told me, "Oh, wow, you're living the dream." And I laughed in his face, not to be rude, but it was just a natural response. I said, "You don't know the life I live. I'm not a rich and famous rock star. I'm a club level musician. I play beaches and parties and weddings and whatever." And he stopped me. He said, "Listen, I always wanted to play in a band. I'm selling you my amplifier. I'm retiring, and I'm selling you my amplifier. It means I'm never going to live the life I wanted to live. You're living the dream, as far as I was concerned." And that made me self-aware of the fact that, wow, everybody has a different opinion of people from standing outside of them, and seeing them. You never really take that assessment of yourself. And what do I really want to do with my life? And life is too short to say I always wanted to, but I never did. I got caught up in he was a stockbroker his whole life and didn't want to do that. That's not what he wanted to do with his life, but he traded his life away for that. And that was a
right.
very profound moment for me. And I said, you know what? I'm tired of living the rat race. I'm going to do what I want to do with
There you
myself.
go, man. That's exactly it. You weren't living. You might not have been living your dream, but you were living his dream,
Right,
right? So
right. But
that's
it was
pretty
just
cool.
something to think about and a perspective changer that here's a guy who had all the money, all the financial success in the world, but still wasn't happy. And looking at me saying, wow, I trade places with you. And that's a very, uh, it's a humbling experience, but it's also one that makes you think, well, maybe I don't have it so bad. But if maybe I should just get out of doing because I was basically doing the same thing he was doing is I was working in corporate America doing things that weren't making me happy and
Mhm.
wondering why I wasn't happy, you know?
Exactly.
So big point of it. So on your website it says meditation because meditation is so slow. So or too slow. So how does with the method that you teach, how does the discovery of self-awareness begin if not with meditation? Where do you lead people to kind of find out who they really are and what they really want to do with their lives?
Well, the thing is, like with what I do, like, yes, you're right. The hashtag I got there's a meditation takes too long, and the thing is, like, I still meditate, right? I meditate probably I don't know 3 or 4 times a week, and but the thing is, like, it just takes too long. I mean, you just basically sit there and you're quieting your mind, you're hoping for something to happen, right? Where the system that I use now, Amoni, is it's an active discovery. We use muscle testing to find the emotions that we've buried. Basically, the muscle testing helps establish a link, like a communication with the entity that's holding the keys to the castle to that has the answers to all the emotions that you've hidden and you've embodied. Embody the term embody. We put these emotions in our body. As our body is like a kind of like our high school hallway, and it's just like littered with lockers. And instead of books and notes, our body holds on to emotions. And once these emotions, they these each emotions has a different frequency, like heavy emotions like hate and uh, guilt and shame and anger. These things they vibrate at a very heavy frequency, whereas love and joy and happiness have a very flowy resonance, emotional resonance. So like the one of the first books that I read was called Molecules of Emotion, and when I started my healing journey, and for me, like that book was just really triggered me because I realized that the emotions that we experience affect us on a molecular level. So, a lot of the diseases that we experience, a lot of the injuries that we incur, I believe, start off as an emotional resonance that we have embodied and that we've anchored into our body. Some of us hold our emotions in like our big storage bins or like our knees. Some of us our liver. Some of us our heart. Some of us our neck or throat. It's we embody emotions all over, and to be able to find those using muscle testing, I think it's just for me it was a life changing experience. Then
Uh,
we used the muscle testing and then a meridian chart, which is like a map of all the emotions of and where they're located in the body. So we use the muscle testing to find where those emotions are where those are located. Then we connect with them on a mental level, thinking, we go back and we experience, using muscle testing, we find out what age that this emotion was prevalent, what age this traumatic event happened. And then there are corresponding release points on the body that are they're connected with these emotions and the places where we find them. Uh,
wow. Well,
and
this,
then we use a breath to help move the emotion once we connect with it on a mental and physical level. And then when at the very end of each session, we use neuro linguistic programming to rewire the system and like grease the wheels of intention to send the person further down their path of their hopes and dreams. So
um,
nice.
it's more the more you talk, the more it's sounding like this is not something that somebody could do by themselves, right? Because or can they? The muscle testing and all this stuff, you have to have somebody else there asking the questions, right, and interpreting the answers. Or am I wrong about that?
No, well, at first, I think like I serve as like a guide. Like I've been through this, and I know like how you know how to how to get to where I'm at, how to get out of that self sabotage, how to get out of addiction, how to get out of all the programs that you're using to basically keep you stuck, right? But through this work, I also teach the people that I work with who how to use this work, because I don't like when I see somebody like after I work with them, I don't want to see them again. Like I want them to be able, I want to empower people, I want to give them the tools to be able to fix themselves. I don't want to hook somebody on a, oh, you got to come see me every month for, no, that's BS, man. Like you can fix yourself. We are all capable of healing. Like we can all heal our own selves. Like, I think one of the biggest travesties of the last probably century and a half is that, you know, first of all, like I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the pharmaceutical industry. Like I was in several accidents. I got a staph infection where I almost killed myself, and it's just so modern medicine has saved my life. But there's a point where you know the marketing that the pharmaceutical industry has done is that it's taken our hope away, and that hope is what we use to heal. See, the thing is, like, do you think about the process when you get sick, right? Most people, when they get sick, they go to the doctor. They like, what's wrong? The doctor runs some tests, and he's like, I think this is it, right? And then he writes you a permission slip, a literal permission slip that you take to another doctor, who then gives you the instrument that is supposed to help you heal. And all of our hopes is put in that little pill, that little purple pill, that little injection, that little bottle of whatever it is. And the thing is, like, if you look at like the clinical trials for most of these drugs, like the placebo is more effective than the actual drug in many cases.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
our,
I hear that definitely. I think that we tend to want to take the easy solution, and a pill is a lot easier than having to kind of face your own inner demons, without a doubt.
yeah, well, it's embodied in look at the movie The Matrix, right? The whole thing is like for him to get his, to receive his consciousness and move out of, the machine world is to take a pill. Remember, it's the green pill or the red pill. Remember that, or blue pill? I don't know, whatever.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, red and blue pill. So,
Dude.
does traditional psychotherapy frown upon what you're talking about, or do they accept it, or is it part of? Because when I do believe somewhat, and again, as I said in the intro, I think anything that works for people, I support. I don't
Hmm.
tell people there's not just one way. If you're looking for help, or you're looking to help yourself, whatever works for you, that's great. Good for you. I'm glad to see it's working for you. But I know I do believe in kind of the talking cure, traditional psychotherapy, and talking this stuff out. I know that takes a long time too. It takes
Hmm.
a lot of years, because at first you go in, if you're with a psychotherapist, normal people, most people are going to be not fully open, not fully honest, and for a while. It takes a while to gain that trust, gain the rapport, where you can be honest with yourself, and then honest with the therapist. So
Exactly. And
does
even
it?
then, like even when you're talking with another individual, right? There's always like a shade, or like a filter that you put on. And so the thing is, like for me, like that kind of work that's never worked. Like I've done I've done so many different modalities, and gone to so many different doctors, and just talked to so many different people. And like went to this dude in here in Taiwan that was jabbing me with a stick, like literally with a stick, like to help me heal some of my physical injuries. And like I've done so many different things, and like nothing worked. And for me, like I would rather, that's why what I do now resonates with me so well, and with the people that I work with, is that it empowers you. Like you take this work, and you take the muscle testing, and you take the plan that we put together, and you go in, you take the tools, and you fix yourself. You know, why, you know, uh, why rely on someone else to do the work that you can do yourself? Like we are all capable of healing ourselves.
Okay. Now, I understand that now, but I do think, and maybe I'm wrong about this because I'm certainly no expert in it, but I've dealt with a lot of it in my life
Hmm.
of addiction, physical addiction to things like some drugs, I think, and some substances. And you
Hmm.
know, it doesn't always have to be a substance. We can be addicted to behaviors as well.
Oh, of
But
course.
some substances create a physical addiction. Now,
Of course.
can you deal with that just by self-awareness and being aware of it and end it? Because you know, it's something. You know, let's say I had a son who I lost to heroin addiction,
Uh-huh.
and been through rehab with him many times, cleaned him up and all that stuff. It doesn't seem to me that self-awareness would have been enough to save him. So
Well, here's the thing, like with addiction, right? You're exactly right. There's a physical addiction that comes with, you know, the substance that the individual is abusing. Before I started down this path, I was drinking a case of beer a day. Then at night, I was drinking Jack Daniels to help go to sleep. Like the beer wasn't doing the work before, and that I was back in America at the time. Before I went back to America, I called my brother because I was like passing out in the streets drunk in Vietnam, you know, in a third world country, and I was sniffing heroin.
wow,
Man,
wow.
yeah. So you know, there's a physical there are physical implications to addiction. Like, and I've experienced them firsthand. And so there, when you're overcoming addiction, there's two levels to it. There's the physical part that you have to overcome, but then there's the emotional part. The reason that the person is abusing heroin or alcohol or food or work, it's not because like they want it. You know, they don't want to destroy themselves, not on a conscious level, but it's on a subconscious level. And that's those programs that are running that are keeping them going back to the bottle or back to the injection or back to the cake or whatever the poison is that they're using, right? And so the most I have never been out of all the things that I've done, I have never been more proud than owning addiction. I can now. I went from having a case of beer a day and then Jack Daniels at night to I can have a beer now when I want it. I fought addiction. I fought alcohol addiction for over 20, almost 25 years. And
Wow.
I drank like that. I drank like a fish. And I drank with the intention to put myself out. I just did not like myself. I didn't want to be in this body. I didn't want to be in this earth. And honestly, alcohol was the funnest way to numb myself and to basically, I was like, you know, my heroes when I was young were like Jim Morrison. You know, I wanted to go out like that. I wanted to pass out in a bathtub, you know, in my late 20s and 30s, you know, with a bottle of Jack Daniels in my hand and like, you know, say, all right, that's out. I'm out.
Yeah, well, not a good goal to have in life, I
No,
think.
exactly, right? But the thing is, you know, that was not a conscious, you know, it's not a conscious goal. That was the way that I felt about myself, you know, on a subconscious level. And those are programs that I carry that I've eradicated. And as I was going through this work, when I first experienced this work, I had an individual take me through, and I was like, man, you know, these emotions that we're uncovering, like this is deep stuff. Like if you know, if we're releasing these emotions and these connections they have to me, you know, I should be able to drink again, right? And he was like, "Oh man, you know what? Yeah, I wouldn't do that if I were you."
Yeah,
And
well, when you mentioned that you can have a beer now, most people who, especially with alcohol, but basically any addiction.
Anything.
I lots of people in AA, and the general consensus is no, you can never have one ever again, and that's that.
I
That
disagree with that completely.
Yeah, well, if that works for you, God bless you. And again, but that's the way most people look at it. Now,
Hmm.
with the physical stuff, well, like alcohol can be in a physical addiction, heroin, meth,
Mm.
cocaine. With that stuff, do you have to detox before you can start your program and start the ammoni stuff, or can you start it while you're still kind of addicted?
Yeah, I definitely recommend doing the physical detox beforehand.
Okay. Uh,
Yes.
and so, yeah, do you have any requirements on that kind of stuff? Because generally, like for when you go into recovery programs, they like have a different number of days depending on what the substance is and how long it should be out of your body. Do you do any of that stuff or not?
It's a case by case basis, and yeah, I mean, I want to see, with the individual, like, before we start doing any work, I want to make sure that they're ready to do the work, that they
Right.
want to do the work. It's not, it has to be on their, as long as they're ready, and they're ready to accept and ready to own up to where they are and what the life that they've created. You know, then we can start to make some changes. But until that point, most people go to rehab, and I did that. The same thing. It wasn't by choice. And the
No,
reason that I ran away from America in my 20s because I had been in two car accidents, both because I was drunk. And then in my after I graduated school, I started making enough money where I could start doing cocaine again because I found that in college. But I was a college student, so I didn't have a lot of money. But when I started making money, I was like, "Oh, it's on now." So I found, reignited my love affair with cocaine, and then like I got so deep into that, and I was like, oh my god, I've done it again, like twice. I put my parents through, almost killing myself, and now now I'm doing cocaine, and I basically, yeah, I just packed up bags and I ran away. So
wow.
we can beat it. The thing is, like a lot of people hang on to the thing like you were talking about earlier, like addiction changes. It changes us physically and it changes our brain. But the thing is, like we've been taught to feel like we are helpless, right? And that we're dependent on like other like pharmaceuticals or whatever, this program or that program to get us through it. But or that we're stuck on that program, right? The thing is, like, if we can change our brain, with addiction in the first place, then we can change it back, you know. And it takes some time, but like this is like it's possible. Like I'm living proof, and there are quite a few other people. My wife has been through food addiction, and and you talk about something rough, you talk about heroin and alcohol, those are rough. But like somebody with a food addiction, I mean, dude, we have to eat. You have to eat to live, right? And can you imagine
Right.
having an issue with something that you require to sustain
Yeah.
your living? That's tough.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think it's a healthy thing to kind of compare and say which is better, which is worse. It's not a competition of who's got the worst addictions, right?
Well, no, but I'm just saying,
Yeah, I
that
know.
is, it is a tough one.
I know it is, but there are lots of ones that gambling. It can be an addiction that could, and it's played a big role in my life. Not that I was ever a compulsive gambler, but that's
Hmm.
part of the trauma that I grew up with and understanding it very well from being around it so much in my life. And
Hmm.
that's one that you see people losing everything they have in their entire life for the thrill of of a bet or something. That's
Yep.
they're all of it. Now, in the intro, I said because we get a lot of pushback, especially when people use words like life coach to describe themselves and all that stuff. A lot of
Hmm.
people reject that, and I understand that's the semantics of it, and sometimes the words can be a problem with that. But
I agree.
whenever people are listening to somebody who has found something that has helped them, and they get excited enough about it to want to share it with the world, because this helped me and it helped save my life. Now I think it can help you, and I want to share it with you.
Right.
People expect people like you to be perfect. Oh, does he live in a perfect life? If not, and so that's a big part of the challenge, is getting through people's minds that nobody's ever going to be perfect. You're never going to reach perfection in this whole life. All that matters is you found help and have moved and have bettered than you were in the past, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
what would you say to people? Because I know what I would say on this subject, but I'm just curious about how you would address that. Oh, well, you live a perfect life. Are you happy? Are you perfectly happy in everything you do now?
No, I mean, I'm still striving to yeah, I'm working with my big thing right now is the business, right? Growing Harmony. So
Right.
everything else, the rest of my life is going fairly well. But was it perfect? No, of course not. I mean, we all
Right.
have bumps in the road. I mean, 2 weeks ago, my wife and I got COVID. So and that was for me. That was like a real mind. Uh, the physical implications of it weren't that bad. But man, I just really played with my head, and so yeah, I mean, we're always battling. We're always working with something to and growing and changing somehow. I mean, you and I are completely different persons than we were when we first started this interview, right? I
Yep.
mean, our
Yep. Yeah.
change is constant. So
Right. Very,
yeah.
very good point. But now, because I want to move into cause past addictions to the next part of it, and you talked about everything. Everything is a relationship. Everything in our life is a relationship.
Hmm.
But I have somebody in my life right now, a younger person. I don't want to give too much away because people, I don't.
Yeah, I get it.
I don't want to put somebody else's private stuff out there. My
Right.
own stuff, I'm fine with.
Right.
But somebody in my life, um, is going through some struggles with
Hmm.
a personal, intimate relation, a
Uh-huh.
husband and wife type of thing. And
Right.
my counseling on that is that we spend too much time looking at others and thinking their life is perfect, or judging ourselves against other people, and looking at other people's relationships. They're so happy together, and why can't we be like that? And I'm like, you can't you can't get locked into judging somebody else from the outside, because nobody's life you can't know them till you live their own in their shoes. So you have to concentrate on your own stuff and what does it really mean for you to be happy. So I'm just wondering what your approach to that. I know you mentioned everything is a relationship, but specifically those kind of relationships, husband wife, boyfriend girlfriend, any of that kind of stuff in those relationships. How does the system that you use deal with those kind of things?
Yeah, no problem. If you want to heal any relationship, you start with yourself. Yeah. And there, once you work on how you perceive the situation and the emotions that you're bringing to the situation or the relationship, then the relationship changes.
Right.
Yeah. And if
Yeah.
it doesn't, then you have the clarity, the awareness to say, this is not suiting me, so now I should move on. But in many instances, once we change, once we do the work, because we're always, most of the time, when we're fighting or we're in an argument with an individual, we're like, you doing this, you're doing that, you blah blah blah. You're always pointing the finger, but we need to turn that finger back around and point it at where it really needs to rest. Right, the attention needs to rest on ourselves.
Yeah. You know what I always think about, because people always bring up, counseling, couples counseling, marriage counseling, all that kind of stuff. I think most of people who go to that, and I know because my wife and I had years ago, we went to couples counseling.
Hmm.
And basically, what that is each party in a relationship is going to that third party, hoping they're going to back up my side of the story and say,
Exactly. Yeah,
"No,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
right. She's the bad one," or she's gonna, "Yeah, he's the bad one." Whatever it is, just you're wanting them to take your side of it, and so all of it in relationship is a give and take. But to your point about it starts with self, how do you break down the resistance? Because the resistance to honestly look at yourself and take a true and honest self assessment, because denial and wanting to believe it's all the other person's fault, I think, is a natural fallback for everybody who's having a relationship problem. Like, can't be me. It can't be me. Can it be me?
Yeah. That's the, that's the awareness, right? And that, that the awareness has to come for us to make changes, right? Because most of us, we're we're programmed to look at the outside world. I mean, that's how we begin our lives, right? We use our senses to make sense of the world, and and pick up, what we're seeing, what we're feeling, what we're smelling, what we're hearing. Everything is based on our perception, is based on the external world, right? So we're always looking outward, right? I think I saw a cartoon one time, and it was like an angel talking to God or something. I don't know, like an angel talking to like the entity, right? I don't know, God, Buddha, whatever it is. And they were talking about consciousness, and they were like, the angel was like, where should we hide consciousness? Should we hide it like on the highest mountain? And God was like, no. Should we hide it at the bottom of the deepest ocean? And God was like, no. And the angel was like, well, where are we going to put this consciousness that will help them, solve all their problems? And God was like, I will put it somewhere that they will never look. And the angel was like, where's that? He's like, inside them.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Um, somewhere, I don't know if I read it on your website or in a synopsis of the book or somewhere, about the idea of frustration being important. Frustration can be a tool.
Mhm.
That's a confusing concept for me. Can you enlighten me a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, frustration. Frustration can be our salvation. Like it's a spotlight right on our problem. So the thing is, like, we have, imagine two different gears, right? So one gear is the subconscious, right? And your subconscious, your programs, right, telling you, how you react to the outside world. And then the second gear would be your conscious intentions, like what you want, the things you want for yourself, for your relationships, for your business, for whatever it is, right? These are your hopes and dreams, the things that you're after, right? Well, the thing is, like, on many times, I'll use like drinking, for example, right? Many times, like, we want to stop drinking, but our subconscious programs are keeping us drinking, or keeping us self-sabotaging, or keeping us using that vehicle of addiction, because we don't feel worthy, or for whatever reason that we've programmed, right? And so the frustration that we feel, that when we try to quit drinking, is our conscious intention, like us, like, all right, man, I'm fed up with this, like, I'm tired of, like, waking up, in my own vomit, or passed out, or whatever. That conscious intention of you wanting to stop is going against the subconscious emotions of you basically being addicted, and that program that you're running. That frustration is that friction that you feel between those two gears, between that conscious intention and the subconscious program.
Right,
So once you find that, when you feel that frustration, that like, that's an area where I need to work.
right. How long? How long did it take you to kind of, first of all, realize that you, as you put it, were a runner and needed to stop that, or needed to deal with that? Was it instantaneous, or was it one session? Was it? Did, talk to me about how long it took to kind of get to that realization and self awareness.
Oh, I would say, like, during my first session, it was like when I really uncovered, like, my own perception of my self-worth, and my really negative self-worth. And from then on, like, as we were going through these sessions, and we were uncovering these emotions, like, self-awareness is like, I kind of like to describe it as like bubbles. Like, imagine a little kid, like, dipping that little wand into a little plastic bottle, and like blowing out, and like bubbles just blowing out in the air, right? Once we, like, the self-awareness happens, is it's like going up to those bubbles and just popping them, right? And once those bubbles pop, those bubbles are like the program. So once you pop that bubble, it's like, oh, whoa, 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 oh my God, I've been doing this. I've been thinking this. I've been feeling this. Like I've been this energy. I've been holding on to anger and blah blah blah. And like once those things pop, it's like, whoa, and that's your awareness. That's when you realize, like, oh my God, I've been doing such and such. I've been thinking such and such. I've been feeling such and such. And once you have that awareness, that's when you can make a change. Because before that instance, the things that you thought, felt, done, all those things have been flying under the radar. They've just been programs that you cue when you're in routine. And most of us, 90%, 95% of the day, we're just running on routine, right? We get up, we brush our teeth, we go to work, we go, blah blah blah, and we do that. We don't even think. And when we're not thinking, when we're in routine, we're in this domain of the subconscious. And when we're in the domain of the subconscious, those programs are running our life. And when you find those bubbles and when you pop them and when you're aware, then you're like, whoa, I'm doing this. And when you're finally aware, that's when you can make a change. Because you can't change if you don't know what you're doing, right?
Of course, of course. That's just common sense, I think. But
Right.
common sense is something that's not all that common, of course.
No, it's not
Uh,
right.
but does forgiveness play a role in what you talk about? Because there's a couple of different levels of forgiveness: forgiveness of self, forgiving yourself for all the for not being aware of the patterns that you've run your whole life and all that stuff. But then in the traditional recovery programs like AA or 12-step programs, they say, you go to people and you kind of not ask for forgiveness, but explain that you're sorry and show remorse for whoever you hurt in your life and all that kind of stuff. And with that generally comes some forgiveness. You can't
Mhm.
promise that, but do you deal with that at all? Because it seems like, because you talked about guilt being one of those heavy emotions that resonates
Mhm.
on, it would
Yeah.
seem that if you don't forgive yourself, you're going to be stuck with that guilt for a long time and not be able to escape that. So if you could just talk to me about, if at all, that forgiveness
Yeah.
plays any role in what you're talking
Yeah, I
about.
definitely feel like forgiveness is a huge part, and it's just a natural part of the progress of when you're of the self awareness. So when you realize that you've been doing this, then you go through, so it's almost a mourning process, right? So you realize, like, oh my God, I've been doing this to myself, and then it's kind of like, oh my God, why have I been doing this to myself? And then it's like, oh my God, because of this, because of these programs that I've installed, because you know you realize that it is your fault, and that is the most beautiful part of the process, realizing, because then, we talked about earlier, pointing the finger, right? That finger just turns right back around, and it's like, oh, but the most beautiful part of that process is that when you stop pointing the finger at other people and you realize that the decisions that you've made have created the life you live, and like you are where you are because of everything that you have done, right? Then you can, like, that's when you can finally own the situation. You can own where you are. You can own yourself, and like totally begin making changes. And
Yeah, I agree, and I hear what you're saying, but there's part, and the but, of course, in NLP,
no
you
problem.
you know what but means. But that's where I think forgiveness comes in, because the patterns and the choices that you made were, and you've said this yourself. It started in childhood. Now you can't expect a child to be all that self-aware and be necessarily responsible for the patterns and mechanisms for dealing with trauma that they develop. So that's where I think forgiveness self-forgiveness. You have to realize that you were a kid when you
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and it's not that, it's not like, when I say, you turn the blame on yourself and you realize, you created this, you realize, and that's the beauty of it, is that you realize that that the child that it, that embodied these emotions, was did so, you know, as they were growing, as they were using these emotions to make sense of the world. And it may have been an ill-intended response to, a stimulus, to an outside stimuli, but it was you that grabbed onto that emotion. Maybe it was subconscious you, but you did it, right? And that is part of the ownership. And it's like, once you own it, then you can be like, oh, okay, now I did that as a kid, but that little kid, like, I can't, he was just doing the best that he could, and
Right.
that's when you experience a tremendous amount of self-love. And it's like, oh my God, this poor little kid going through this situation. And like, that's how he or she, embodied this instance. And it's like, oh, you poor little kid, and it's just a you just flood. And that's basically one of the big reasons that I came up with the name Amo Ni too, because it's just a huge amount of self-love that flows through you. What The first book I read, one of the first self-help books I read was Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It, I think it is. And I remember I put a little sticky note on my mirror as I was going through this book, and it basically said, "I love you." And I would go in the mirror, and I would, every time I went to the restroom, I would look in the mirror, and I would try to say those words. And then after a few weeks, I just tore it down. I was like, "Oh, I hate myself. I don't
Oh,
love myself."
yeah.
But going through this work and like and discovering, like, that, these decisions were made by a child. And how can you have anything but love for a child, right? So it's just
Yeah.
like, it's, especially your own child. And when that happens, it's just, yeah, you can, you look in the mirror and you can say, and you will say, I love you. And that's just so beautiful.
I've struggled with that, and because somebody brought that up not too long ago, a couple of months ago on the show about looking in the mirror and telling yourself you love yourself, and I was just like, that's just that comes really hard for me, and I do have some degree, and I work on it all the time of self forgiveness, and I talk about my childhood all the time, and I'm very conscious and aware that I don't want to paint my parents as villains in this subject because, first of all, nobody is a good parent, and there's no book on how to be a good parent. They were
Mm-mm.
doing the best they could, flawed people as they were, and I forgive them, but they are part of my story and part of why I became the person I was, and I think to negate that and to ignore it would be, denial on my own part. So I have to
Exactly.
kind of, but, that part about I live my life in almost wishing that I could have the innocence back that I had when I didn't know the world for what it is, and I think that's part of why I have a tough time looking in the mirror and saying, because I know what I've done and yeah, I can forgive myself for some of it, but I know at some point, man, if there is a God, he's not happy with me at all.
Well, the thing is, that's, the judgment that we put, not only on others, but we put on ourselves as well. And I like what you said about your parents. It's so true that, I mean, we grew up with these individuals, and they have a direct influence on our lives, right? And then, like you said, they're just doing the best that they can, and, like, there's no instruction manual. So it is, yeah, it's just realizing that, we're all doing the best that we can. You've
Right.
done stuff, we've done stuff, everybody's done stuff,
Yeah.
that we're not happy about, we're not proud of. Not even, some people might not have done like physical actions, but they had the thoughts, or, it happens on many different levels. And people judge themselves. You might judge themselves on the things that you did, but somebody else might judge themselves on all, the things that they've thought, right? And so it's not, we're all just doing the best we can.
I agree, and that's a great message to kind of wrap this up on. Now, I want to tell people, so you have three books out: Ammo Abundance, Ammo. Let me look at Ammo Movement and Ammo Form, and they're
Hmm.
available at ammoclear .com, which is your website.
Hmm.
And so, is there any where do they start? Which one of the 3 books they start with? Which is there an order that they're supposed to be read in?
Yeah, actually, I bundled these together into the program that I'm doing now. So yeah, these are all. I had them on Amazon, and I pulled them on Amazon because I was talking with a business advisor, and he was like, "Dude, don't do that." So
Right.
actually, yeah, I bundled them into the work that I do now, and as I guide people through this work, and then I give them the books so they can use to, to work with abundance. The one for form is for addiction. The one for movement is for to help move the emotions that we've anchored to our physical body. I have one called Amo Evolution, which is an advanced work. I have another one called Amo Harmony, which is to work with anger. So yeah, I've got a whole program, and all of that stuff is included in the post work that the individual will do with themselves, and that actually I will do with them once we finish the course.
Gotcha. So how does it start? They go to the website and do like is there like a formal consultation? What is how do they get started if they want to?
Yeah, go check out the website. On the very top of the website, I've got webinars that I'm doing live weekly, and so they can
Yeah,
sign
so
up.
because you're in Taiwan, most of the stuff has to be like this, remote, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, okay.
yeah.
I don't think they have to travel to Taiwan to
No, 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 no. Everything can
Good.
be done online.
All right, the link is in the description. It's ammoniqueclear.com,
Hmm.
and you can get started tonight, right? What time is it there?
It is. Let's see what time is it. It's 9 o'clock in the morning.
In the morning, and it's 9 o'clock. So you're actually 12 hours. 12.
Yeah, I'm
It's
12
tomorrow.
hours ahead of East
It's
Coast.
July 6th over there.
Today's fifth. Yeah, today's sixth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. It's just so weird talking away all the way around the world. And we do it a lot, though. I mean, I talked to Australia. The first time I've had anybody on who's been in Taiwan.
That's cool.
So it's a first for us. I wish you great success with this, man, and I hope people will
Thank
check
you so
out.
much, man.
Again, I support anything that helps people. If this helps people, I'm all for people checking it out. I just want people to keep an open mind to it, and they can learn more on the website, and it's linked to in the website. So,
Thank you
uh,
so much, man. I
been
really
great.
appreciate it.
You're welcome back anytime if you wanna continue this conversation or wherever it goes. I appreciate you being here tonight. Enjoyed talking with you, and if you feel the need to come back anytime, I'd love to have you.
I think I'd love that too.
Okay. All right. Have a good night. Bye for now.
All
Oh,
right.
good day.
You too, man.
Bye. Bo Bissett, folks. Great conversation there. I think some important stuff. Again, I want to stress: keep an open mind. If you're dealing with some issues and you want some help, and you've tried other things that haven't worked, why not look further into this? ammoniqueclear.com. The link is in the description. Bo seems like a very authentic, real person. Not a phony, not somebody who's just trying to um, just sell you on some the latest diet fad or whatever that kind of somebody who's just snake oil salesman. He seems like a real authentic person. Why not? If you are dealing with stuff that you need help with, give him a chance and check out his website and see what you can learn about it and see if you're interested in what he does and what he has found. So that's my message for tonight. I hope you enjoyed this program. Write to me at info@minddogtv.com, info@minddogtv.com. Let me know what you thought. Tomorrow morning, what do I have tomorrow morning? CJ Hightower will be with me for Coffee with the Dog tomorrow. CJ is a very funny comedian out of Atlanta, Georgia, Hotlanta, as they say. So I look forward to that. Please join me then. Till then, I'm Matt Napa for the Mind Dog TV podcast. Have a great rest of your night or day if you happen to be around the rest of the on the other side of the world. And I'll see you tomorrow or later today if you happen to